Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Package Tourist, hosted by yours truly, The Package Tourist, and the magical mystery tour called life, Matthew DiBiase. Tonight's guest is Benoit Clairoux. Benoit lives in Verdun in Quebec and is a member of the Society of International Hockey Researchers. He maintains the website histoirenordiques.ca devoted to the history of the Quebec Nordiques. Tonight, we will be discussing his latest book release, which came out 2 months ago, which titled in English is called Once Upon a Time, There Were the Nordiques. 100 Players Tell Their Stories. Benoit, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you, and congratulations on your new book. I'd like to start off by asking you, Benoit, how long did it take for you to write this book?
Well, Matthew, thanks again for the invitation. It's great to be back. How much time? First of all, I must say I wasn't alone. This project was made with a friend of mine, Pierre-Yves Dumont. So we worked very hard, each on our side, but we put all this together, and the sum of this work, of course, is this new book. And to answer your question, it took us about 3 years, I think, yes, since the beginning, when we decided to do this, and then to make all the interviews and putting all this together, finding a publisher, etc. Well, about 3 years.
Okay, wow. Now, Benoit, please tell our listeners, who were the most notable Nordiques players you interviewed for this, you and your partner interviewed for this book?
Mm-hmm. Well, we were able to talk to many of them, not all of them. Unfortunately, sometimes, we couldn't find the contact, or some of them are still very busy, in the NHL today. We did our best, but we were able to talk to, some of the Stastny brothers, Peter and Anton, Michel Goulet gave us an interview, Marc Tardif was a great player, especially in the WHA years, and one of my favorites, Daniel Bouchard, former goalie. I talked with him for about 2 hours, so a great memory for me, but also he had great stories to tell for the book.
Now, with you and your partner, were these interviews, or were all the interviews face-to-face, or was it done by telephone or video chat, or a combination of all three?
I think all of them were by phone. Perhaps the easiest way, of course, some of the former Nordiques are in the province of Quebec, but a lot of them live elsewhere in the U.S., so it was easier to do it by phone.
Okay. Besides players, Benoit, did you and your comrade interview any general managers or front office people?
No, we didn't. We really wanted, to give the players a voice, because, some of the coaches, like Michel Bergeron, Jean Perron, Jacques Demers, they all wrote their books before. Maybe they're not available in English, but still they already did. They had the more power, if I might say, because some of them became journalists. Some of the also former, like President Marcel Aubu, he was always in the press anyway, so he had many occasions to talk about this time with the Nordiques. But the players, many of them, if not all of them, they don't have a chance or really don't have much time, the opportunity to talk about the time when they played. And some of them, when we asked them about their time with the Nordiques, it was the first time that they talked about it in some cases,
Wow.
Maybe 30 years or 40 years after the fact.
Wow.
So that's why we wanted, and it's a decision that we took at the beginning to ask the players, and then in one case, like André Savard was a player, and he was also a coach, but he only talked about the time when he was a player. So
okay.
we kept our strategy all the way.
Okay. Now, does the book cover the entire history of the Nordiques from 1972 to 1995?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, we talk a lot about the first 7 years, the WHA, the World Hockey Association.
Yeah.
We were able to talk to many players at that time. So we have many stories and anecdotes. And I think it's important because, some of our readers may not have been there at the time of the WHA, or they don't know much about that league. So, yes, it's a book about the Quebec Nordiques, but the Nordiques, they owe so much to the WHA. Without the WHA, they would have never been in the NHL.
That's right.
So there wouldn't have been a team in Quebec City.
Yes.
Forget it,
Yes.
So it took the WHA to Quebec to get in the NHL. So that's why we have a big section about the WHA, but we also have, of course, the first years in the NHL, but also the last years, maybe a little bit less, because, like I said, some of the players of the time are still, much involved in the NHL and are harder to find or to talk to. But still, I think we cover all the history of the Nordiques.
Okay. Benoit, when you and your partner were doing the interviews, was there any interview that really took you by surprise? In other words, a revelation like whoa, it was real surprise, maybe stun or a shock.
It's funny because the last interview I made, it was the 100 interview. It was with Randy Velishek. Randy was a defenseman for the Nordiques. During the years, when the Nordiques were really struggling, and the year when they finished last for the third consecutive season, and they did it, by finishing last, they got, of course, the rights to Eric Lindros.
Ooh.
And Randy, he was quite honest with me. He told me that, in his opinion, the team did it on purpose. They really lost on purpose.
Ooh.
They traded players on purpose to make sure that they would finish last and select Eric Lindros. And to my knowledge, I don't think it's something that was really said at the time, because the Nordiques, they finished dead last, the 2 years before that, so it was kind of normal that they would do it again that year in '91. But still, to hear a player tell me, the team, they did it on purpose, it was a surprise for me. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
It was a good, that last interview was quite fascinating, but Randy Velishek, he's honest when he says that. He's not trying to invent something. That's really because that's what he thought. That's what he said at the time to the management, and of course they didn't like it. But he told it, and he told it to me also.
Okay, Benoit, what was the funniest story that was told to you or your partner by a Nordiques player?
Well, I think the funniest player. With the funniest stories, I must say it's Paul Stewart.
Ooh, okay.
Paul Stewart? He, of course, is a former referee in the NHL, but before being a referee, he was a player, and very tough, rough and tough player, and he has so many stories. Of course, he wrote his own book, but he was able to tell me stories that are not even in his book.
Ooh.
So there's one in particular, about the fact of, American and English Canadian players living in Quebec City. Sometimes it's tough, the language and things like that. So, one night he was with Jimmy Islop with the Nordiques, and he wanted to eat some chicken, so he called the chicken place, the restaurant, and he asked for 12 poitrine de poulet, or those chicken, 12 chicken. But in French, deux, deux is 2, and 12 is 12. So they got 12 chickens.
Beautiful. Magnifique.
There's many stories. When he met Quebec Premier René Lévesque was a central figure in the history of modern Quebec, and he met him at a restaurant, and Lévesque, of course, was fully bilingual, and he asked him, Paul Stewart, how he was doing, and Paul Stewart, he said, oh, it's okay, I'm doing fine, but I have someone who's talking for me,
Yeah.
So Lévesque said, oh, you have an interpreter or something, a translator? So Stewart says, no, I have, he took his wallet, and he took a dollar bill, or I don't know, 5 or 10, a US dollar, and he said, when you have enough George Washington's talking, speaking for you, everybody listens. So that's what he said to Lévesque,
Beautiful. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So at the time, already the US dollar was stronger than the Canadian dollar.
Yeah. Okay, Benoit. What was the saddest story told to you or your partner by a Nordiques player? The saddest story.
Well, the story of Michel Dion is a very sad one, but it's not that sad, of course, because he came back.
Okay.
But basically, with the Nordiques, the second year, the first year in the NHL, Dion had a very good season and came back for the second season, and everything fell apart. And during a game against Boston, he left the game. He, after allowing another goal and people booing in the stands, he just decided to quit. And he left the game. And Michel Bergeron, the coach, told him, what are you doing? What are you doing? And Michel Dion was just saying, I can't take it anymore, so he left. So that's a very sad story, but again, he was in the shower and he told himself, what have I done? I'm a born-again Christian. I tell everyone how much I love Jesus and Jesus helps me, and then I quit,
Yeah.
during the game. But he came back and it was tough, but of course he didn't come back with the Nordiques because he couldn't play anymore, and besides they got Daniel Bouchard after that, so with Daniel Bouchard everything was okay, but Michel Dion came back. But still, it was tough. After ending his NHL career, he had to do a few jobs, low-paid jobs and stuff like that. But now he's a golf teacher, so in the end, it's a nice end to the story. But I'm pretty sure it was very tough for him and other players. Also, another goalie, Pete Donnelly. He had a terrible time when he was playing before the Nordiques. In Vancouver, he was sent to the minors.
Yeah.
He had a car accident and came back with the Nordiques, but then he was hurt, and the doctors did a bad job. They didn't know what to do with him, and it's sad to see that how a career can end like that.
Yeah. What was the most dramatic story that was told to you or your comrade by a Nordiques player? The most dramatic story?
Well, I can say, I think, without mistaking that the most dramatic moment, well, good dramatic or bad dramatic? Bad dramatic must be, when Marc Tardif was assaulted by Rick Jodio, by the Calgary Cowboys, of the Calgary Cowboys.
Yeah.
That was a playoff game in Quebec City, the second game against Calgary at the Colisée. Marc Tardif had just scored, and after that, Jodio jumps off the bench, and he really skates towards Marc Tardif, and he hits him, and Tardif falls to the ground. He's knocked out, and still Jodio starts to beat him up, even though Tardif is unconscious.
Yeah.
That's a terrible, terrible moment. But then all the players of both teams jump ice. And at least 3 players from the Quebec Nordiques have told us that they would have probably hurt Jodio pretty bad.
Yeah.
If not for Benoit Clairoux, the goalie of the Calgary Cowboys, who came to the rescue of Jodio with his stick, and he just, if not for McLeod, it could have been even worse, So to have 3 players telling us, Pierre and me, that they would have done something pretty bad that night, if not, for that, it's quite something, to hear a story like that. Unfortunately, some people think that, it was nothing, it was just a little clash between Jodio and Tardif. No, it wasn't. It was terrible, one of the worst attacks in hockey history, and well, we felt, the obligation, Pierre and me, to myself, to give, and in this chapter, I think there's 15 or 16 former Nordic players who tell what they saw that night,
Yeah. Another a big moment in Quebec, 1984. That massive brawl with the Montreal Canadiens. Does the book really get into that heavily?
Well, it's maybe not as violent as the brawl between the Cowboys and the Nordiques a few years before, but the thing is that game, in Montreal, it ended the series. Montreal won the series that night.
Ouch!
There are some Nordic fans who still, like that game, but I wonder why. Because it's a terrible moment, to remember. It was interesting because I talked to Richard Sévigny. Richard Sévigny was with Montreal that night, and he played a major role in the brawl because he's the one who took Delonter off the ice. He got Dale to get a suspension for the game. So that was something, the backup goalie from Montreal who gets rid of Delonter. So that was something, and he was very honest with me also. He told me, well, I saw him in front of me, and I thought to myself, well, if I can do something for my team, there he goes.
Yeah, wow.
And Clint Malerchuk was the backup goalie for the Nordiques. I didn't do this interview. Pierre-Yves did it, but he told Pierre-Yves that, Malerchuk, he was still a backup goalie. He was scared, he didn't want to overdo it, but if he had known that Sévigny would get under like that, well, he told us that if I had known, I would have punched out Sévigny before, I would have taken care of him. Real good, but he didn't know. Nobody knew exactly what was going on. Even Sévigny told me that between periods, even the Canadiens had no idea what was going on, and when the two teams came back on the ice and all the players who were thrown out of the game were still there, nobody told anybody that they were thrown out, so even the Canadiens had no idea what was going on, so it wasn't, the NHL messed up, but I don't think the Montreal Canadiens were involved in that,
Okay. Let's get back to the Stastny brothers. Did you talk to all of the brothers there? I mean, tell us about that. What was it like interviewing the Stastny brothers?
Well, my friend Pierre-Yves, he interviewed Anton, and Anton is the funny one, of the three, and he's very nice, and he jokes a lot, and he doesn't have a good memory, a good relationship with Michel Bergeron, perhaps the coach. So he never said, he never named his coach, to Pierre-Yves. He always said the coach. He never said Michel Bergeron once, So we, well, you can
interpret that any way you can. Yeah.
Get your our own conclusions. But anyway, Pierre-Yves is a kind of friend. He's friend now with Anton, and they met in Quebec City. They had a drink and everything, so all's good,
Okay.
Peter Stastny is he's a busy man, of course, although always, and he's in Europe, he's in the U.S., he's everywhere. But still, we sent him by email, so we didn't talk to him by phone. He's maybe one of the 2 or 3 that we didn't talk to on the phone. We gave him so many questions that he said, "What? I'm not going. I don't have time to answer all of them. So I'll answer the first page, So he gave us very good answers. But later on, we had a few questions, maybe 4 or 5, maybe a little more that we really needed his input. So we wrote him again, and he answered all the questions. So it was nice of him,
Okay.
Marianne, the third brother, the older one, but he came a year after Peter and Anton. Marianne, sadly, is very ill. He cannot speak anymore. He has a Parkinson's disease,
Ouch.
And it's a very late stage. Very sad story. So we couldn't, talk to all 3 Stastny brothers. Of course, they have their own story behind them, how they fled Czechoslovakia, and Peter and Anton leaving Marianne behind. We don't really get into that because there was another book, published about that. And the entire story is there, and all 3 brothers at the time, could talk about it. So we would just refer people to that, but I'm not sure if Peter would have wanted to, and Anton maybe. It's still a tough subject. So we didn't talk to them about that. We didn't ask any questions, but we certainly asked more questions, about their time playing with the Quebec Nordiques and some of the events, So in fact, the aspect that we're covering in the book, are kind of new because they don't talk about the games they played. They talk about the way they left Czechoslovakia,
Yeah. During the course of your interviews, you and your partner, did you ever ask any of the players their feelings and emotions about when the team left Quebec?
Yes. Well, there's not a chapter about that, but the last section of the book, the last year, of course, of the Quebec Nordique, a few players talk about that. The players who are still there in 95, a few of them, that we talked to, maybe 6 or 7, they tell us, that they were all sad to leave Quebec City. They all, the people we talked to, maybe the ones that we didn't, they were not happy in Quebec City, but all the players that we've talked to were quite happy in Quebec City. It's a hockey town. If you're willing to say a few words in French and learn a little the language, it's one of the best places on earth to live,
Yes. It's a magnificent city.
If you're not afraid, of the snow and everything, when it's cold, but most of the guys, if you play hockey, you're not scared of ice, so I'm sure you're not scared of snow either.
Yeah.
But still, they were all sad to see the team leaving, and also the players before, who played in the 80s, the 70s, they were also upset, and because they had worked so hard, to build that team, and to see it go away, it was a very big downer for all of them.
Yeah. Benoit, please tell our listeners, where can they find your book and all of your books? Where can they find this book?
All of them. Well, this book, the nice thing about it, it's on sale on Amazon. So, Amazon Canada, I'm not sure if it's also on sale on Amazon US, but it's on sale on Amazon Canada, and so it's a first for me. I think it's my first book available on Amazon. Not sure, but anyway, of course, it's a Canadian book written in French, not necessarily easy to find. There's a few big library chains towns in Quebec City, like in the province of Quebec, like Renaud-Bré and Archambault. So, but if you just type Benoit Clairoux and Nordiques, I'm pretty sure you can find a way to buy this book. The other books I wrote before, well, the first one the first book I wrote in 2001 about the Quebec Nordique. Well, this one is very, very tough to find. You know.
Okay.
It's not. Well, there are no copies available anymore. I mean, that was 23 years ago. So of course it's tough to find. And people who bought it at the time, well, they seemed to like it, so they kept it. So if you can find the first one, the first book I made in 2001, well, congratulations, because it's a nice book to have, and they both complete. You know, the new book is it's all interviews with players, and the first book I made 23 years ago was more like an encyclopedia and with more statistics and stuff like that. You know, but so put the two together, and I think we've covered most, if not all, of the Quebec Nordique history.
Will there be an English version of this book, an English translation? Any chance of that?
Well, we certainly hope so. Unfortunately, those things they can take a little time. I know with our publisher, Sylvain Harvey, a very nice fellow. I mean, he did a terrific job with our book, Sylvain. A great guy, and I know he's talking to publishers in English Canada, you know, but there's not that many publishers, so it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy if Sylvain wants to publish it himself in English. Not sure if it's going to work out. So, but there's a few possibilities. So we still hope that it will be available. Maybe not. We're hoping for next spring, but not sure if it's going to be possible. Probably not. But hopefully next fall to 2025. You know, since it's also the 30th anniversary of the Quebec leaving for Colorado, so we'll see if we can do it next year. But we certainly hope so, because there's no book really about in English about the Quebec Nordique. There are parts of other books. There are very small books, you know, that were made, but I mean they're not. There's not as much stuff, you know, in those books than our book. I mean, when people see our book with 500 pages, they say, "Oh wow, now that's a book," you know.
Yes.
So we put the most many. Not all of it, but we almost, I'd say about 80 or 85%, maybe more of the interviews, you know, that the content is in the book. So it's a nice book. I'm very proud of it. It's not my first book. It's my 10th.
Yes.
But the second about the Nordique, but I am very, very proud of it. I'm also very proud for Pierre, because that's his first book.
Yeah.
So we hope it's going to be available in English soon.
Okay.
We like it a lot.
Benoit, any idea about your next book project? Any ideas, any glimmers you can offer our audience here? And if you got any, when can we expect its release?
Well, you know, I work for the Montreal Transit Corporation, and the Montreal Metro will be 60 years old in 2 years.
Ooh.
So I wonder if somebody is going to write a book about that. I wrote a book about the Montreal Metro, that was 23 years ago also. And after working for more than 20 years for the Metro and the buses, I'm sure I could do another one, if you say please.
S'il vous plaît.
S'il vous plaît, in French.
S'il vous plaît. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Benoit, I want to thank you so much for appearing once more on the show. It was great talking. I can't. If there is an English version coming out, I want to get it. I've always been fascinated with the Nordiques and all of that, and it's kind of a pity that there isn't a greater audience. And I would love to buy an English version. So let me know when it comes out. Okay.
Oh, I go to your place. You're in Philly, I think, Philadelphia. I'll go there and give it to you. All right.
Thank you. Merci. Okay. Take care. Take care, Benoit.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for next week's show, where I will be interviewing football historian Terrence Troop, where we will celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Cleveland Browns winning the 1964 NFL title. Thank you and good night.